These 2025s do not appear to be better. Roughly 10% of the product that we're shipping out right now for the GM and Allison 10 speed is for 2024s and 2025s. What General Motors is doing is cheaper and more scalable, go figure, and it is where they use paper, which is extremely thin. It's basically like construction paper. I said this was going to happen. I said that they were not going to fix this in 2025.
All right, we're back with Nate here from NextGen, and Nate, we have kind of continuous proof that the 2025 GMC transmissions are not holding up any better. I know the recall, the rear wheel lockup recall was up through 2023 that it covered. And and now we're seeing this a lot. This is what I'm seeing in groups where, okay, here's a 2025 GMC Sierra double cab 2500, and he has sporadic yet harsh shifts, 2,500 miles on the truck. Another person has a 2,000 miles on the truck. There's another comment here from a lady. Her husband's 2025 has been at the dealership since before Mother's Day with waiting on a valve body. Continued common theme, and GM doesn't seem to have a fix. And I wanted to ask you, this guy said he has a 2025, 11,000 miles on it. He installed the NextGen kit. NextGen kit fixed his problem, and he found aluminum shavings in his transmission at 11,000 miles. This is kind of why you keep beating the drum of like preventative maintenance. Don't wait till you have problems. Are these two valves both General Motors valves? They are, right?
Well, they are both original to the General Motors 10-speed Allison, and well, actually, just the 10L60 through 90. They just started making this change in the Allison, quote unquote Allison. What I find interesting, these are not valves made by General Motors. They're valves that are marketed through General Motors. I don't know this to be a fact, but I believe and I predict that they're made by Macleon Fogg, who makes the majority of valves for big OEMs at this time. Macleon Fogg, McLean Fogg, however they're pronounced, I think they have a long history, in my opinion, of making really, really desperately low quality stuff. That is my opinion. And I just don't see this culture ever changing, and even if that's not who's cutting these valves for them, though I believe it is, in my belief, it doesn't change the fact that there's a design problem. And, it's really crazy because I know definitively that the engineers at General Motors know better. Usually the engineers at these places, they're not dumb. Some of them might be pompous, but they're not dumb people. Usually what happens, and Mr. Cello spoke about this in a previous video, and I can attest that this is currently going on today, even after he has since left that end of the industry, is they task people who are engineers, usually mechanical, when it comes to transmission stuff. Engineers whose job is to come up with changes almost every year, usually every year. And sometimes these guys are pressured to make changes that really don't mean anything, but they have to prove they're doing something. And the financiers and corporate executives do not allow them to make changes that really make sense because they're usually out of budget.
Do you I see questions like this too. So the separator plate, I see this question a lot come up in the videos. There are other questions too that in Facebook that I'd love to ask you, but I don't think we'll get to all of them. But they were asking about your NextGen kit. So it's got the divider plate, and they always ask, well, one of them had the factory plate has that black cover, and yours is just a steel plate. Is this, I don't know, maybe we can help people understand why.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I invented all of our separator plates, I had two goals. One was that it would be a one-piece design, so you don't have to add additional layers to help it seal. You don't have to rivet it. You don't need to use that paper that gets torn off. None of that craziness, just that it was one piece. And two was that it would correct any reasonable amount of valve body deflection that anybody would experience in a million years in a reasonable application. And so what you're looking at in this separator plate is very common. It's a little bit cheaper and more scalable than what Ford does and what ZF, or as I would call them, General Motors Daddy does. ZF is who they're copying with this transmission. ZF and Ford try to bond a strip of silica based material along the plate in a strategic way so that it seals against the castings worm tracks, as people call them, the parts where it makes contact with the plate. What General Motors is doing is cheaper and more scalable, go figure. And it is where they use paper, which is extremely thin. It's basically like construction paper. And they, no, literally, I'm not even joking. And they bond it using heat and an adhesive to the steel plate. And the issue with this is that the paper comes off. It's just generally unreliable. When that paper comes off, where does it go? Who knows? This can contribute to buildup in different parts of the transmission. The intent here is they're trying to mitigate any potential cross pollination of oil between circuits that are controlling conflicting parts of the transmission. The issue is that they could have just made it thicker and out of a low carbon steel, and they would never have this problem again. And that's what our crushing separator plates do. They were designed to be a one-stop install. This is the end of cross leakage between the separator plate. All they had to do was make it a bit thicker. I manufacture separator plates. I'm in that business. I designed them. And I can tell you now, if they wanted to use our separator plates and never have this problem again, we could probably be really close to the cost of the factory plate when you're talking hundreds of thousands of vehicles. This was once again an avoidable problem that, in my opinion, General Motors did not care about resolving because it's more profitable to sell these things outside of warranty at a disproportionate scale to the number that you fix under warranty. And again, that is just my opinion.
Yeah, I see a lot of people. You'll get a kick out of this one. I don't know if you can see that. This guy had a 22 Duramax, and this is what's happening. He tried the NextGen kit, but I think he was too far down the road and said he said you guys were great. He had help installing it, and he can only assume that his 10L1000 had enough internal damage that it couldn't be saved. So he ended up trading it on a Dodge, and the Dodge salesman told him that they get 5 to 10, basically either Ford or GM customers coming in every week trading their trucks in because of that 10 speed.
Man, once again, I can't help but say, I said this was going to happen. I said that they were not going to fix this in 2025. And, I understand that there are some people out there who they drink the Kool-Aid of General Motors. And they believe like, oh, they're going to fix it. No, it was just a fluke. Next year, it's going to be better. Dude, I've been doing this a while. Okay. They never fixed the 700R4, the 4L60, the 8L45, the 6L45, the 10L60. They never fixed any of them. They're not going to fix this. I'm not dumb. I've been doing this a long time. I design parts for these people, and it's not going to get fixed. It's not profitable to fix it.
And
Land
yeah,
Rover.
I see a ton of people waiting on valve bodies. I do see a trend. And it actually looks like, is GM doing the right thing? I see it in the rear wheel lockup group. It seems like a lot more dealerships are being allowed the liberty to order your kits. Is that happening?
So somebody very high up at the plant in Michigan called in to our sales line, and they spoke to Will. And I guess, Will, to be honest, I have to give credit to my staff member, Will, because that's all of his heavy lifting. He has stopped at nothing to try and apply pressure to General Motors to take care of these customers and use the parts that are proven to fix these units. And he pretty much as an individual, at least on our team, has made that happen. So Will called me one day and he was super pumped up. And usually when he does that, it's like, dude, some company just bought like 20 transmissions or some crazy like that, right?
Yeah.
So I knew his tenor and I was like, what are you going to tell me? And he's like, I just got a call from, and I forget the title, but it was something very, very, very close to the top at General Motors. And I was like, oh, okay, are they finally suing me or what? And he was like, no, dude, they want to buy your kits. And I was like not the dealerships, like GM wants to buy the keys. Like, yeah, GM wants to buy them. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of doubt that's going to happen. I'm sure somebody's going to shoot down his goodwill, right?
Yeah.
So, either way, I'm going to hide his name out of, because I don't know what would happen if I said his name. I don't want to cause problems for him. But somebody very high up sent out a mass email to clearly many dealerships. And after the day we had this conversation, about a week passed and we didn't hear anything. So I kind of just figured, he brought it up the chain. Someone told him to stick his you know what and his you know what and go you know what himself with it. And I just figured this wasn't going to go anywhere. And I forget what day of the week it was, but it was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. We had like 20 something dealerships open up a wholesale account in one day. Well, that's very abnormal behavior.
Yeah.
Like we get maybe a dealer or two a week, dealership, and it was like 20 something in one day in an 8-hour window.
That's a
And
lot.
yeah, I was like, that's not organic behavior. Like some sort of, nuclear bomb figuratively went off at GM. And I was like, okay, well, this has got to be a 1 day thing. Like clearly that's not going to be, long term. And the next day, it was another similar number. And I was like, dude, we're at like 40, 50 dealerships. Like, how many dealerships can possibly be in the USA?
Yeah.
And it slowed down after that. But the point is, we're like 60 or 70 stores have reached out to us to start wholesale accounts. Now, I don't know who's paying for them, who's getting reimbursed for them. I don't know that deal. All I know is that dealerships everywhere, specifically in Oregon and Washington, but really everywhere, have been calling us to get these kits. And again, I don't know who's paying for what or what's going on, but they're using them.
Yeah.
So I think that if you're under warranty and you want GM to take care of you, I think those people should talk to Will because he has been able to make some sort of pretty radical progress. And I kind of just let him do what he wants. I don't really supervise him. But GM has started. Well, I'll put it this way: we have now shipped several hundred kits to GM dealerships, just GM dealerships, several hundred.
Yeah.
So 400 to 600, somewhere in there. That's a pretty big number. So clearly something's going on.
Well, that's yeah, and I think, as much as I bash GM or whoever, everybody thinks I'm just completely negative. I personally think it's a step in the right direction. I don't care if the dealerships are paying for it or GM or whatever. GM was ultimately probably paying the bill, but that's a good thing that they're willing to take care of their customers. I think they realize that they have this problem on their hands that they have to fix. Whether this is a stopgap solution or maybe it's long term, I don't know. Maybe they'll say, well, we have 10% failure rate. We'll replace those with next gen kits. I don't know what the directive is, but hey, it's better than the stock, right?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. So I'd like to say, oh man, we got the, I thought they, we, just so you know, I saw the comment that said, Nate's not going to go out like no Boeing whistleblower. Man, you're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
we
Yeah. Do
we
something.
didn't know what was in the side of the frame in the last interview.
Yeah, no, I saw it after and I was like, man, that's hilarious. But yeah, so I want to address the people who trust in my message and listen to what I have to say. There's hundreds of thousands of people that watch these videos and are like, this is super helpful. This guy is really helping me with his information. I want to give everybody a really important piece of context. Okay. I don't really read all the comments because I can't. It's not possible. All right. I read some of them and then I'm like, look, there's no way to keep up, right? So I know that some people, it's very, very small portion, but some people are like, man, this guy's so arrogant, he's full of himself, etc. I want to point something out. We have had table manners in the automotive industry essentially forever. And it has resulted in the automotive industry that I have committed my life to decaying into a Super Bowl of consumer fraud and abuse. And everybody who has had table manners and sterility when they went after the automotive industry and tried to play it nice and softball questions, Motor Trend, Car and Driver, Road and Track, all right, hasn't gotten anywhere. When I call General Motors a cartel because I believe that their behavior is morally criminal when they willfully abuse customers when they know there's a better solution, in my opinion. When I yell at the camera saying, "How about you sue me?" Right? Because what are you going to do? I'll anti slap you. You'll pay my legal fees. It's not defamatory, it's my opinion. When I behave that way, I'm trying to make as much of a seismic impact on the way these companies operate and communicate as I can. Anyone who was alive for the last election knows that podcasting is the new media. And if you have a big voice on a podcast, you're better than a big voice on CNN or CBS. The last election proved that, regardless of your opinions on politics. It did. Clearly, something about my arrogance and bombasticism, if that's a word, my something about that behavior made enough of a seismic impact at General Motors to where we got some of the most important people in the company calling us to put these kits in your vehicle, and many of them not even charge you. Clearly, my behavior saved a lot of people's business, a lot of people's vacation, a lot of people's way to get to work. Clearly, something about being an saved and helped a lot of people. So I'm proud to be because clearly I helped people. And I mean that. I mean that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was able to help even one person. I'm glad that hundreds of these kits are now going to the franchises because they want to do something right. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope they continue to do it. I think it'll, given what I've seen, and everybody says I'm just, oh, these guys are in bed. These just selling next gen kits. I don't care. Hey, if they're reliable and they're better than factory, sure, whatever. You know, it's then sure I endorse next gen. Woohoo. You know, it's so people are
oh
so
man.
they always think there's something nefarious going on, but then like you said, then they don't question, they never question like legacy media or very large YouTubers that have like millions of subs and they're, you
I
know,
know.
going and do these, they never question them. But then the small people, it's like, yo, we're gonna question them all day long. It's
Man,
bizarre.
you know what I get a kick out of? I've noticed that ever since I started going around on media and educating people on what I know, there have been all these Facebook accounts. And now I don't use social media, so these things get brought to my attention through intermediaries. But we have had all these accounts, no profile picture, fake names, just obviously not legitimate accounts. Accounts made one day ago and their names like
Yeah.
Bob Smith, going in these groups and saying, "Oh, I bought next gen stuff. It doesn't work. Just wait on a dealer valve body," or go to this company that gets their parts from who knows where, whatever country, right? Like, oh, go there. They're the guys, right? And like any post where we get mentioned, they want to suppress us and point to somebody else you can give your money to. And that is very obviously the behavior of someone who's losing money. That's what that is, right? There's no reason to behave that way or to, sit there and make accounts all day just to say things that aren't true anonymously unless you're being paid. And nobody would pay you unless it was cheaper than the amount of money they're losing when people hear what I have to say. I believe, this is the reason that big pharmaceutical companies and big food companies don't want you to know who RFK Jr. is. And they want to tell you he's a crazy person with worm brain and all that
Right.
craziness. Well, is it possible that he's right about something? Am I supposed to listen to the who told me that I should have sex with two masks on 5 years ago? Is that supposed to be the most credible source of information? It's insane. The
Yeah.
people that put the Fauci's of the world in front of us. I don't dispute that Fauci's a smart guy. I dispute that he's an honest guy. That's my problem, right? Those organizations want you to believe that RFK Jr. is some sort of psychopathic, crazy person, right, with brain rot. Well, I think if I was in the financial position those companies were, it would be cheaper to try and smear him than it would be to accept the impact of what has to say, right? I think a logical person would agree with that, regardless of their political identity. And the same thing is happening to us. And I say, bring it on. Uh, and I see these obviously, fake remarks, no profile picture, Bob Smith, the account's 1 day old. Like, come on, from New York, New York. There is no guy from New York City named Bob Smith with a Duramax. There are zero. Okay. So, right. And
Uh,
I get a kick out of it, man. I clearly I'm hurting someone's pockets. And to be honest, I'm okay with that. To be honest, I love serving people. My staff love taking care of our customers. But if people decide that they don't want to work with us for any reason, okay, it's a free country, dude. So
yeah.
I don't take those things personally. But clearly, somebody who doesn't like the information I put out does. Sounds like that means that I'm onto something.
Yeah, I think the overwhelmingly most people are pretty positive on your kits, and
Oh
at
yeah.
least from what I see in the Facebook groups, if you look at people that have installed the kits, they usually come back and give their experience with the installation, and then they talk about their experience with your customer service, and then they talk about their, oh, it's shifting better, it's all these things that I expected out of this truck, and then they usually follow up a couple months later and say still great. That's the common theme. Every once in a while you find someone that their transmission's gone, like that guy we just showed. It's
Yeah.
toast, and they tried the valve body, nothing changed, and they're like, well, that's the way it goes.
I feel bad for people in positions like that because I have been banging the drum of preventative maintenance the entire time. And I have
Yeah.
wanted everybody to understand the last time that the best bullet is the one you dodge, right? And I try to tell people you don't want to know what putting just a stock transmission back in your truck's going to cost. So I feel bad when I see things like that. A lot of those people call in and they're telling our staff members, like, man, I really can't afford to fix this transmission. I should have upgraded this thing sooner, and all that good stuff. I feel bad for people like that because I see all these people that try to tell people, oh, don't void your warranty or whatever. I'm like, dude, let me ask you something.
It's
I've said that.
it's Tommy Boy, right? It's
Uh,
it's you can put a warranty on a piece of crap. It doesn't mean anything.
there's a warranty at McDonald's that if you hate the hamburger, they'll remake your hamburger. It's
Yeah.
always going to taste like you're at McDonald's. What the hell do you think it's going to taste like? So I tell people all the time that warranty is as good as Stevie Wonder's haircuts. And it's you want the blind to lead the blind. It doesn't work like that, right? So I tell people, listen, the best case scenario for your transmission warranty is that they just give you what you just broke. That's the best case scenario. Why do you even want to, like, what's the point? What's the warranty
Yeah.
worth to you at that point?
I
Nothing.
suppose now that GM's, the dealerships are purchasing your kits, at least at some level, we could see people wait just in the hopes that, hey, I won't have to fork out the money for the kit, and maybe GM will if my valve body goes bad. But then that usually is going to risk internal damage, I would assume, if you're to that point.
Well, so I'll put it this way. Our maximum capacity right now, with what we have, and this is with, having plenty of cores and everything, is 10 valve bodies a day for these Allisons and GMs. So that's 10 people a day we can get you back on the road. I understand that that's probably a drop in the bucket. Listen, man, if we could do 100 a day, we'd be doing it. Listen, I got bills to pay. If you don't think I want to sell 100 valve bodies a day, okay, of course I do. The issue is that we as humans can only do so much, and there are only so many people that are qualified to do this work out there. So we're doing everything we can to support an entire industry as one company. And we're not a Walmart sized company. I mean, we're not small, we got a pretty spacious factory. But, my point is that we are, fractional in size at best to General Motors. So we're trying to do a yeoman's job here. And, I wish customers would just listen to what I have to say, because my message, people say, well, how do I know that this guy's telling me, the good information, right? And I will always say the same thing. Part of my message is to not trust anybody in the automotive industry, especially the transmission industry. There is a whole transmission deep state. I try to tell people all the time. And I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say to trust NextGen drivetrain, trust my staff, trust me. Listen, I'm going to be integral and honest and principled and say, don't trust us because you shouldn't trust anybody. Verify anything that I tell you if you can. Do independent research. Don't let me be the only voice you hear. But what I will say is if there is one shred of evidence that I'm just trying to help people, it's that if everybody took my advice to not buy a new car and to make what you have durable before you have to buy a transmission for 10 times the price, I wouldn't have a job. If everybody took my advice, I would be either out of a job or we would be 1% the size of a company. So obviously, I'm giving advice that's against my own best interest. The reason I'm comfortable doing that is because I kind of doubt that enough people will listen to what I have to say to make a change. But what I can say is that we, as you, me, and your viewers, we shook the ground enough for GM to actually start sending these kits out to their franchises.
Yeah.
That is a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge.
Huge.
And it's a probably an aggregate of things. I'm sure it's the thousands of YouTubers doing videos on it in addition to us, but ours probably had the most. I think between your videos and Cello's, it had a huge impact. It was broadened to larger influencers, and it definitely seemed to make an impact. So that's good. That's why we do it. It's not just for fun, just for sales or whatever people think it is. So, and then there was one other question I remembered.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you want to explain it because when you have a high volume of orders, it's just easier to streamline things. People were saying, hey, NextGen used to sell a kit for, $8.99, but now they only sell one kit, but your kit you sell now just includes everything. There's not like an upgrade of the valves. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
People were asking about it, and
Yeah. That's we've been getting that question a little bit recently. So we use the original version of the kit, which is about $800, depending on what version of the transmission you have. That base kit came out before the additional parts did. And so when we came out with those additional parts, we offered them separately because we weren't sure if people wanted to include them because it was a price jump. What we were later discovering is that about 8 in 10 people were buying them together. And out of the 2 in 10 that weren't, 2 in 10, excuse me, about half of them would call back and order those parts before they put it in the truck. So effectively, 9 out of 10 people were just buying them together. And we can only serve so many people with the quantity of staff that we have. And it was leading to complications where it was taking us longer to get orders out, and we weren't able to perform the way that people need us to, trying to sell 2 different versions of the kit when 90% of people just bought them together. So we made the decision, let's just clump it all together, and if we lose a small percentage of sales, I'm trying to do the best I can with what I got. You have to understand, man, there's a dozen of us, and we're trying to get 7 figures a month of upgrades out to the public directly without distribution. There's a lot on us, and we're doing everything we can to do it and do it correctly.
Do you want to talk about, did you buy a new piece of machinery? Do you want to talk about it or not?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So NextGen has a new member of the family. So we just purchased a 7-axis CNC screw machine, which is a special type of lathe. These are the machines that make like the small medical grade screws out of titanium and all that. Their claim to fame is production volume and accuracy. And they are some of the most expensive machines money can buy. I know, I cut the check about a week ago. Painful, okay? But several $100,000 later, our productivity is going to be about 4 times what it is now in terms of production on valves. And that is going to initiate in about 3 to 4 weeks. So we are ramping up production. I just got a new factory for us. It is big and it's bougie. All right. And I am stepping up production to make sure we can support everybody, not just the General Motors people, not just the Allison people. Obviously, we're big in markets like ZF. We are the ZF guys, Chrysler, Toyota, etc. We do a lot here, but I know most of the people watching this are General Motors people and also Ford people who have the 10 speed. But I mean, I don't know how much I've spent so far executing this, but we've put about $1 million into expansion this year. And as the chief exec, I'm the one making the decisions here, man. And that, as far as I'm concerned, that was $1 million we had to spend. So we are going to get our solutions out to as many people as humanly possible, and we're going to make sure it's perfect. And we're going to keep doing what we've done up to this point. We're going to do it even better than we already are. So I'm really proud of my staff, and I'm proud of how hard they're working. I'm proud of the overtime. I would not be here without everybody that answers the phones, everyone that builds the valve bodies, everyone that packs the valve bodies, the people that take care of the property and keep everything clean and tidy. I wouldn't be here without all of them. And so, honestly, I just want everyone to, any appreciation you have for me, just pass it on to my staff because they really deserve it.
That's pretty cool. Well, and you're going to have plenty, I would imagine, just given how long this has been going on, just with General Motors and how many trucks they sell. They sell so many trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mind blowing how many 50, 60, $80,000 trucks they sell in a year. So you probably have a good 5 to 8 years of valve body kits that are going to have to go out just to supply the failures that a lot of these people are going to have. Even if they make it 100, 150,000, they're still probably going to have that failure.
Well, 68 RFEs are almost 20 years old this year, and we're still selling thousands of parts for them. So, man, look, all I can tell you, I said on recording, they're not going to fix it. They're going to keep dropping the ball. They're going to drop it intentionally because they want to sell them outside of warranty, and cost cutting trumps the consumers every day of the week. That was one of the first things I said to the public when I decided to, come out against the behavior that I see in this industry. And I really hope that people see now that I was correct. And for people that are like, this guy's a douchebag, I'm a douchebag because I made real change happen for you guys. Okay. To dramatic impact on my privacy and safety. So it worked.
Hopefully, there's 90% of people appreciate it, and that's all.
Oh, 99.
Yeah,
99%. Yeah.
It's if like you said, it's hard to keep up with the comments, but you go to any GM group, the rear wheel lockup group, all these places that people talk about the transmissions. It's like therapy groups, where all these GM owners get in there and like, how long have you been waiting?
The 12-step program, and the 12th step is telling someone else to get a NextGen. Yeah, that's the 12th step.
Yeah, it's sad, but also, it's cool that people have, it's cool that social media is a place where people can not just use it to scroll crappy things, like they're using it to kind of assemble and get information out, and then we can use it to collect that information. And I don't know, it's actually being used in a good way in this scenario. So I like it.
I'm pretty anti big tech, but I'm glad to see people using social media in a productive way. Unfortunately, I feel like the majority of what people use social media for is, memes, bullying people they would never see in person, and like recruiting to ISIS. Like that seems to be what social media is used for. And it's good to see people using it for something that actually benefits people. But yeah, I'm glad me being a douchebag was able to produce so much impact. And I did, honestly. I knew, like, I'm a bit calmer in this video because I knew that if I went up there and said what I had to say, that they'd be like, this guy is a loose cannon and he's going to do some pretty extreme brand damage if we don't do something. So, yeah, it worked. So
yeah, and on the flip side of that, of all the paths they could have taken to try to change this, they at least are taking what appears to be the right path right now, which is, hey, let's put good products back in our customers' vehicles, get them back on the road so that they're not coming back in here, and maybe they'll, I don't know, pay you for a patent or something. I don't know.
No, I'm keeping that patent. That's my patent. But but yeah, dude. No, I while we're talking, my phone keeps vibrating because people are buying the damn kits. So I'm glad it was able to help so many people. But yeah, I think part of the component here is I know General Motors watches your videos because they've called in and they've people from there have made remarks that make it very obvious that they've seen what I have to say. And like us saying like, well, cartel, that's a pretty extreme thing to say. I'm like, well, I got news for you. Your dissenters somehow get shunned. Y'all behave like a cult. And it seems like there's a culture of dishonesty, abuse, manipulation, and coercion. And that sounds pretty cartelish to me. So that's why I label these big companies cartels. But I think some portion of it is they know that, if they continue this behavior, I'm going to find every megaphone and every camera, every microphone, and I'm going to lambast them with all of the facts, data, and statistics that are burned into my mind from being an automotive parts designer in this industry. And I don't know if I was in their position, I'd be like, we need to shut this guy up. So maybe we should try a more diplomatic solution. And I'm glad they did that. I have been going to great lengths to staff us harder. And what's hard for me is I interview everybody. I don't deal with staffing firms. They'll send you somebody who's a complete idiot. And then they'll, just charge you $70 an hour for them to stand there and be a mongoloid. I just don't believe in that. But we've added some awesome members to the team. We have full-time install support. I found a builder at another shop. He was really underappreciated, and he knows a lot about our products. And he's on the technical support line full-time to help people install a kit. His name's Tyler. Feel free to call in and say hi. He's one of the most helpful people that I've ever found. And I see him literally like FaceTiming people after hours sometimes on his iPhone, trying to like help people install like a kit in an ASIN or something. And I'm like, man, dude, he's so devoted.
Yeah.
We've got some shipping guys that are so locked on, so organized. I mean, we're working literal overtime here to make sure that everyone's taken care of as quickly as humanly possible. These 2025s do not appear to be better. Roughly 10% of the product that we're shipping out right now for the GM and Allison 10 speed is for 2024s and 2025s. Now, you might think, okay, well, that seems relatively proportionate to how many years they've been around. That doesn't seem like it's out of scale. It's dramatically out of scale because those are the ones that are still in warranty. So usually the most recent years are a very de minimis percentage because those people are currently dealing with franchises, their dealership, to get
Mhm.
problems resolved. So it's very rare that you see a number above maybe 5% for something like that, but it's 10%, which means that we're seeing roughly double the people we would usually see saying, I don't even want your warranty parts. I want a fix, a permanent resolution
Right.
to these problems that you left for us. And I think that's a big change in the market. And I think General Motors can see that change. And that's why they're reaching out to us to try and work together. The heat must hurt. So, in my opinion.
Well, hopefully your production can ramp up, like you said, with the machine, and it's just, if it works and everything just stays on track, then happy customers eventually, and then maybe I still would struggle to buy one of those unless I was just buying your kit from the get go. But I can't get my friends to buy them yet. I wonder if my friend's watching this. He's got a 2023 GM AT4 10 speed, and it's got like 60,000 miles, and he doesn't have any problems with it shifting. And I talked to him at dinner the other night, and I'm like, "You gonna upgrade the valve body?" He's like, "No, it's still,
Yeah.
So
You know how
it's
much better it shifts? I mean, dude. So let me explain something to you. So when I design parts, this is part of my passion with everything. When I design parts for these vehicles, I'm not just trying to fix problems. I want them to be a better vehicle to drive. And I'll tell you a story, a very short one. I had a Ram 5500, and I know this is kind of apples to oranges, but this most of our products this could apply to. So it was the first AS69RC valve body upgrade kit with billet pistons, billet everything. This was before a failing company that buys parts from China decided to copy my kit, but with aluminum and with different springs that were the same color. You know who you are. This was the first one on the market, and it's still the best one on the market. I put this kit in my Ram 5500. Now, anyone who's had an AS69 transmission knows that they're not really all that bad. They're relatively reliable. They got some problems, but they're not the worst transmission out there. But they're very unexciting to drive. You put your foot down, and there's a good 3 to 5 seconds of nothingness. They're not very good for fuel economy. It's kind of a runoff of the 6-speed transmission found in the Lexus LX series SUVs about 15 years ago. So it's kind of reliable and kind of terrible to drive. And I was so used to this truck just being a dog off the line. And I put the first kit in there, the one I invented, the one that's still for sale today. I put that kit in the truck as a test vehicle. And I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of just figured it would feel a little better. I put my truck in drive and I give it the exact same amount of pedal that I need to pull out of the parking lot every other day I drive to work. And no sooner do I do that, the whole ass end is swung out. And I'm like, oh my God, man. Like you
Yeah.
don't understand that 99% of the driving benefit of a built, up armored, re-engineered transmission is achieved with just the valve body.
Hmm.
90 plus percent. It's just really insane. I mean,
Yeah.
we measured this on a Duramax once. We got a Duramax 0 to 60 a whole second sooner, 1.1 seconds sooner, with nothing more than a valve body upgrade and a low stall torque converter, one of ours.
Hmm.
So people would be astounded how much performance and reliability you gain by upgrading the vehicle with one of these upgrade kits. It's pretty insane. And there's nothing
Yeah.
else on the market that does that at the scale that we do. And honestly, I encourage people to compare us to anybody, and you will see why we are the guys and gal.
It's awesome, man. Between this and some Toyota issues coming up, I don't know. We're just
I'm
gonna
getting very close to getting into that market. We have
really.
so many. Yes, we have had loads of people calling with the 8 and 10 speeds. And I was like, I figured there wasn't a whole lot going on because nobody was calling us. But I guess your viewers, a lot of them referenced you, started calling us and saying, like, hey, this is like a crisis. There's whole threads of people that are down. Like, and so I'm looking into it.
Hmm.
And a lot of the parts to fix that are interchangeable with the AS69RC I was just talking about. So that would save a huge portion of the production and development cost.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen, I mean, I guess it's all numbers, like Toyota doesn't sell as many Tundras as GM sells half tons and 3/4 tons. And so the numbers for GM and Ford are just massive compared to like a Toyota Tundra or something. But the 8-speed Toyota, that ACEN transmission has been around since like 2018 or something. That one's had some problems early on, and it exhibits some interesting behavior because they put it in Volkswagen Atlas as well. So it's the Toyota ACEN in a Volkswagen Atlas 8-speed. I have it in my wife's car, and I feel things, and I'm like, that sounds a lot like what Nate described. So I'm always trying to figure out what's not sealing right, or what's lagging in hydraulic pressure, and then my wife will complain about something like, it's weird, it just downshifted harshly, or it lagged and then downshifted harshly, and all these, and I'm like, oh yeah, here it comes. So
I am the only person with a pulse dampener delete system for the AS68RC. and it shares a lot of the same parts as the transmission you're talking about, and it causes those exact same problems. The other thing is that the accumulators, dampeners, etc., in the valve body in that vehicle have no seals on them at all. Most companies use seals; they're just cheap seals or something. They don't use any. It's actually bore fitment. And so what ends up happening is if there is any erosion of the bore around the piston, you start losing the pressure that turns those clutches on. And so this can develop drivability issues that are really obvious. Downshift clunks, delay and bang, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I have fixed all of those problems already on different ASIN transmissions, and I'm pretty sure that I could get a kit on market that fixes that in like 90-ish days. If I
Hmm.
just knew what years of valve body were all the same, which ones are the most problematic. If somebody could send me one, I'm happy to pay. I'm pretty sure 90 days or less, I could have something on market.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah,
Well, mine's
if you know
under
anyone.
warranty, so I don't need to do anything. It's under warranty.
Is the one that you have the same one that people are complaining about going back in time on the Tundra or anything? Like what
I'm
is the window that people are complaining about?
the most complaints I've seen are early on in the 8 speeds for Toyota. Like they came out with it in the Camry, and that they've had that 8 speed in a lot of different things. I'm not sure if they use the
Yeah.
same clutch plates, or if they give a Toyota Camry a weaker internals than they give a Tacoma or something. But they've had it out a long time, and most of the issues they had the first year are either software programming, they claim, or
It's not.
or they have debris in the, it's always debris. Everything's always
Yeah.
debris. It's like, oh, we
Yep.
have debris issue. I'm like, okay.
You mean your
But
shit's wearing out? You have a your shit wearing out issue.
yeah, yeah. We'll see. I mean, it's weird. It's the 8 speed's a really nice transmission most of the time in that thing, just because it's smooth and quiet, and most of the time you're just getting good mileage. But every once in a while it does something, and I'm just like, no, that's not how it should feel. When my old 6 speed ASIN feels completely solid and never feels different and never has a clunk, and over 200,000 miles on it.
I'm gonna see if I can get one of those valve bodies. I've been with the Nissan GTR, the GR6 transmission, which is really just a Nissan Jatco dual clutch. But I don't think that's a massive market, and it's pretty much
Yeah.
just going to be performance people, So I don't know, but yeah, if you know anybody, another person bought those kits as we're talking. I don't know if you heard it vibrate, but dude, I just sit here. I 4 or 5 of them sold while we were doing this video.
It's crazy.
So yeah, just to the GM ones, I
That's what
that
I was going to ask you. I thought it was one of your staff, or at least a guy that was claiming that he was part of your staff, saying that you guys were planning on making an install video soon. So
yeah.
I think that was a big request in the Facebook groups.
Yeah, so we've come to realize that we need videos for everything. We have come to the understanding that um, a lot of people who don't read the instructions are people who, I'm just being honest, because we paid a marketing firm to look into this, um, don't really comprehend reading well, unfortunately.
Right.
Okay, it's America, man. We're number one, right? So we run into some of those people, and so we're discovering like some of these people literally need a video because some of these people don't read, very well. All right, unfortunately, you got some people, salt of the earth, honest, decent people that just are they're like I don't know, something that doesn't require being good at reading. So we are working on videos. We're scripting them. We have more staff now. We're going to get them out the door, and we're going to make sure that we want these videos to be as useful as possible, well lit, easy to understand. We want it to be my direction to the team, and we have a professional video, whatever the term is, I guess recording people. I don't know. I'm just the one paying for it. Okay. But I have a camera crew coming in to do everything professionally. This shit is going to be nuts. All right. It's going to be easy to follow. And my exact words to my staff were, I want someone who does not know what a transmission is to be able to install this product.
Yeah.
That was my direct. And I told them, if I see the finished product and I don't feel that way, it's going back to production. Okay. That's exactly what I told them. So we'll see what they come up with, but I've
Yeah.
given them a timeline of 60 days.
Nice. Well, I know it. Honestly, it's a big hang up with people if maybe they're on a tight budget or whatever and they buy the kit, but then they don't want to pay the transmission shop to do it. But once they realize that they could do it, and then they have that videos, it's so much easier to do something like this and show someone in video how to do it than it is to write it on paper, or, it's just thousands of words in like a 5-second clip, So it's going to be, I think it's going to be awesome.
Well, and fairly, putting a valve body in is extremely easy because it's a modular valve body. It's you bolt in, bolt out, nothing falls out and surprises you. There's no springs or balls. When you take the valve body apart, that's different. But when you unbolt the valve body from the case, there's one plug and all of the bolts are the same. And all of them have an arrow pointing to them in the casting. So there's no way to mess it up. So anybody can bolt a valve body in. So if you're like, look, I'll bolt a valve body in, I don't know how I feel about rebuilding it, even with really good instructions, then get a valve body. The fastest turnaround, we're a 1-day turnaround right now if you send your core in. We're about a 7 to 10 day turnaround if you're waiting on an exchange. That line is growing due to an absence of cores. So the fastest thing is always, sending yours in, getting it back in a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say. Look, my staff will literally sit there with you for hours and take pictures with you and walk you through it, Martha Stewart making brownies style. Okay. And literally, when she's not lying to the FBI, she's making excellent food and she makes it easy to follow the instructions, right? And I think her and Snoop Dogg are an interesting combo. I find it interesting that they're friends. Yeah. But I told him I want it to be that easy. I like I said, I'll sum it up as what I said before. My exact words to the producers that we're going to have working on everything, my staff, you name it. I told everybody, if I want someone who has never seen a transmission before to be able to install this kit. I think that our instructions are pretty much there. The only thing, to be honest, the only problems anyone ever calls us with somehow always seem to be someone who did not follow the instructions. And they're like, no, dude, I totally followed him, man. And then they send us pictures and we see that all of it is trashed, right? It's people that don't follow the instructions. They put stuff back where it doesn't go. They didn't call for help. They were just like, who cares, whatever. You run into that now and then. But if people just follow the instructions, everything works perfectly. That's all you got to do. Okay. That's it. It's even gotten to the point now where I have somebody who checks all of the shift valves before they go to a consumer, period. And we almost never find any that are defective, but you know what? It's good to do it anyway, right? And for the amount of business we're doing, it's well within budget. And we want to make sure that every kit goes out perfectly and exactly the same as all the other ones people are happy with, right? And so all people need to do is follow the instructions. That is my best advice to anybody who's like, I really want to do the kit. I just don't know how is this over my head or something?
Yeah.
Literally just follow the instructions. And if it's too much, you can call us and we'll be your phone a friend.
It's awesome, man. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, I know the viewers are going to love it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, 2026 is maybe they'll be better then.
They won't.